I've been blogging about communications issues as they relate to COVID-19. Now, I'm not an epidemiologist, so it's not about saying how things should or shouldn't be dealt with. I'm more interested in learning some of the communications lessons that come from watching how different countries and different communities respond to the crisis. I've commented elsewhere about the importance of consistency. Consistency in communication is a tactic which builds trust and portrays the person doing the communicating as a reliable source of information. I've also made note of some of the interesting metaphors that have evolved in explaining to people some relatively complicated scientific concepts. So people are portrayed as dots bumping into each other, transmitting the virus, and health systems are portrayed as leaky vessels with water going through them as people recover. But one of the topics which is generating a lot of discussion more recently is the question of empathy. And empathy is about putting yourself in the shoes of the people that you're communicating with. And only a few days ago, Donald Trump was asked at one of his press conferences what message he had for the American people who might be at home feeling relatively anxious or scared about what was in front of them. And he responded to that by essentially turning on the journalist.
You say the Americans were scared though. I guess nearly 200 dead, 14,000 who are sick, millions, as you witnessed, who are scared right now. What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.
Go ahead.
I think it's a very nasty question, and I think it's a very bad signal that you're putting out to the American people.
So that response makes a really interesting contrast with some of the more empathetic messages we've seen from leaders in other countries like Canada and New Zealand and Germany.
What do you want New Zealanders to do to unite against COVID-19?
Firstly, I do want to acknowledge just how extraordinary this time is and that it will be making New Zealanders feel anxious. And so I do want to acknowledge that. But I also want to say that you will continue to get really clear, early direction from the government.
You're looking at the uncertainty in the global economy and probably wondering not only how long this is going to last, but how long your savings are going to last. No matter who you are or what you do, this is a time where you should be focused on your health and that of your neighbours.
And so there are some important lessons here for us in communicating with our own stakeholders or our staff or our teams. We've got to try to put ourselves into the shoes of the people that we're talking to and remember that it's only with empathy that messages will actually cut through and be listened to. Because without empathy, what you have are messages which are transactional. Here's a bunch of information, take it or leave it, or otherwise conditional. That is, if you don't do behaviour X, then bad things A, B, C are going to happen to you. That's a conditional message. And so I think there's probably a need for us all to be thinking a bit more about the way we inject a sense of empathy into our messaging, because if there is one thing that's coming through consistently in all of the discussion about COVID-19 is that we are all in this together. And so a little bit of sensitivity and empathy in the way we communicate and talk to each other through this, I think is going to be really helpful.